You're somebody that just started a podcast, or maybe you have a podcast already and you're just kind of curious about this, and you're asking the question, how many podcast episodes should you be putting out, say on a weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, or whatever it is? Today, I'm going to go through a handful of things to help you answer that question thoroughly, because it is really contextual for each person individually and depending on the podcast and the audience that you serve. So we're going to go through a couple of cues in order to be able to help you make that right decision. First things first, and I always 100% of the time start with this, is what can you do? This is a very important thing to think about because there's some people out there that think they could put out daily podcast episodes or weekly podcast episodes or bi-weekly podcast episodes or whatever it is, and they get into it, they stay consistent with it for 2 or 3 months, and then they fall off because they couldn't keep up with it. Maybe they went on vacation, maybe they got sick, maybe they got super busy because they're running a business and things fell through, they forgot about it, or maybe interviews weren't coming through or whatever it was, technical support. There's so many things that could impact you not doing your podcast recordings. So it's important for us to understand, one, there's a lot of things that impact those, and do we have the proper support? Do we have the proper personnel that can help us with that? If you're recording them on your own and you have your setup, then cool. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're walking into a studio, maybe you have somebody that's helping you run that stuff, it's important to understand, maybe they're going to be sick. Maybe they're going to be on vacation. Maybe they get fired or they suck at what they do and I can't find somebody else to fill in for them. These are things that you have to think about. And this all impacts your ability to actually be able to stay consistent with the episode recordings. At first, especially if you're launching a podcast, I'm going to give you some really good advice. If at first you believe that you can do one podcast episode a week and that's comfortable for you, stick with that. One of the things that I'm very adamant about when I'm starting to launch a podcast with a client is sometimes I'll have people say, well, I want to stretch it with it. I think I can do 2 a week, or I think I can do 1 a week. I'm going to say, let's back that off a little bit then. So maybe by 25% or 50%. If you tell me I think I can do 2 a week, well, I'm going to have you start at 1 a week and then let's build that up 4 or 5 months down the road. Let's go to 2 a week, or let's go to 5 a month and add on 1 extra on a monthly basis just to see if you can keep up with that to test the waters. And then we go from there. A lot of people don't understand, yes, at the end of the day, 1 episode a week, which is 4 a month. If you're doing an hour-long episode, it's really only 4 hours a month of content that you're recording. But until you get into it, you may not know if this actually fits your regulated schedule or not, and if you have the capacity for it. I always say, what is your capacity? Stick with that for now. And then you can always go up from there. But the thing you don't want to do is start with 1 a week because you believe you could do that. You get down the road and then things get busy, they get hectic, you forget about it, and then you ultimately stop and not come back to it because it just doesn't make sense, or it's uncomfortable because I stopped it and now I need to start it back up. Let's not get into that conversation at all. Stick to what you can do. If you are a full-time content creator, that's a different story. But most people that I work with are not. They own a business and they're running it and they are occupied with that, so they can't keep up with that many episodes on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So let's start you at a comfortable place and then you work from there. Now, ultimately, it's very standard for most podcasts as we move on to this next point. Now that you have that figured out, it's very regular for podcasts to do 1 a week. I think that's totally fine. I think it's a sweet spot. It's very manageable for a lot of people. But ultimately, if you can do more, then do more. If you can do 2 a week, if you do 3 a week. But at the end of the day, just like social media content or anything else in life or in business, just because you do more of it doesn't necessarily guarantee your success and results. Just because you're putting out 1 episode a day doesn't mean you're going to grow through the roof. We still have to focus on the content itself. It's very important to make sure that we're valuing the quality over the quantity when it comes to podcasts. And the important reasoning behind that is because of what a long-form piece of content can do for us at the end of the day. We can take an hour-long podcast episode, turn that into a 5-minute, 10-minute YouTube video. Then we can take that and turn that into 10 to 12 chopped social media videos that can get put on Instagram or YouTube Shorts or Facebook and that sort of thing. It's important to understand what we're working with here because a long-form piece of content is the asset. So you do want to invest as much time into the quality as possible. So if quality eats into your ability to pump out more, then let's stick with quality and then go up if we can in volume from there. At the end of the day, quantity does matter. And if you can match the two, quantity and quality, then we're working and we're doing really good. So if you can maintain a high quality podcast at 2 a week or 3 a week, then definitely do that, because then that will drive your results and get your success kind of started and on the way a little bit more. But most people don't understand what it takes to maintain both of those. One of the last helpful tips I'll give you is to batch your content. What I'm doing right now, actually, for my YouTube channel, I do this for my podcast as well, but if you have any form of long form content like a YouTube channel or a podcast, definitely batch your content, because what that means is you sit down for an hour or two and just load up or a full day and just load up all of your content for the month or for the quarter. It's often, I actually travel out to people, visit them on their sites. Like I'll actually go out, I did it this week, and I went to Ohio to film with a client, and for 2 days, we just sat down and filmed a bunch of content for their podcast and YouTube channel. I'm not gonna have to come back out for another quarter before they have to do it all over again. So 1 day investment got them an entire quarter's worth of content, and they don't have to worry about it anymore. So I highly encourage you to batch your content. So if you do 1 podcast episode a week, then just sit down for 4 or 5 hours out of the month and just do all of your episodes and your recordings right then and there. Then you don't have to stress about it the next month or 2. And stay ahead as much as you can. Typically, when it comes down to it, more frequency, I make it a requirement for my clients to stay at least a month's worth ahead on recordings in the pipeline. So that means that if you're putting out 1 episode a week, you should never have less than 4 episodes recorded in the pipeline ready to go out. That's important because you want to stay ahead of schedule on the recordings. Don't fall behind, because again, if you get sick, go on vacation, you get busy in business, you fall behind on recordings, and next thing you know it, we don't have any episode for the next week. And we don't want to do that, because then that creates a rush on if you do record it, and then now my team's got to edit it and we got to rush through it. That just makes a big hassle for it. So those are just some helpful tips for you if you are asking the question, how many should I do? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it really depends on you and your capacity. If you can do 1 a week, fantastic. That's ultimately where you want to be. Anything less than that, it's just really hard to see any sort of results. If you can do 2 a week, I really like 2 a week, and I think that's the best ultimately for most people. And a lot of people too will do, say, 1 solo episode a week and 1 interview a week. And that cadence works well also. You can get a little creative with it. Maybe your 3rd episode is a repurposed piece of content or whatever. I've seen a lot of people do that as well. But just ultimately figure out what works for you from a capacity standpoint, and that'll answer your question there. So that's it for today's episode. Hopefully that was helpful for you and answered your question. If you need a little bit more help, I know it's not a very direct answer, but it does give you a lot to think about. Leave a comment below if you have any other questions. I'd be happy to chat with you and maybe even do another video on answering any specific questions that you have. And if you haven't already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.